Welcome back, Fantasy Pros. I am Andrew Erickson, and today, I'm breaking down my players to trade before this week's upcoming NFL slate. But before I get to my trade list, unlock the full potential of your team with Trade Central. Pinpoint your strengths, weaknesses, and top trade partners all in one place. Next, stay ahead of the competition by using the Trade Finder to uncover game-changing trades that can take your team to the next level. And finally, before you pull the trigger on any deal, rely on the Trade Analyzer to see how your moves will impact your lineup and your chances of victory. With My Playbook's powerful trade tools at your fingertips, you have everything you need to win every deal, dominate the season. Head to fantasypros.com/myplaybook or download the Fantasy Football My Playbook app today. Now, let's get to the trade list. Javonte Williams, rest of season rank, RB36, sell. Week 6, Javonte Williams led the Denver backfield with 6 carries for just 23 yards. Rookie Estime, fresh off the injured reserve, contributed 13 yards on 2 carries, while Gio McLaughlin added 8 yards on 3 carries. But Williams also lost a fumble. The final snaps were Javonte Williams 67%, Jaleel McLaughlin 25%, Audrey Estime 4%. Denver's going to play the Saints' reeling defense and the Panthers in their next 2 matchups. These are 2 absolute smash spots for the Broncos running backs to get going. But after Javonte Williams struggled again in week 6, turned the ball over, we could see this backfield dramatically shift. After the game, head coach Sean Payton said he wanted to see more of the rookies. Quote, "I want to see Audrey Estime. I wanted to believe Javonte Williams was turning the corner after 2 strong weeks, but it might be over for him. He's not a Payton guy, and he's hardly given a great case for keeping the RB1 gig in Denver. Cash out now, make sure McLaughlin and Estime aren't available on waivers. Sell low on Javonte Williams for Ramondre Stevenson, Jonathan Brooks, Tyrone Tracy, Ty Chandler, Rome Odunze, or this next wide receiver who is basically free. Calvin Ridley, rest of season rank, wide receiver 51, buy. Ridley was targeted 8 times, but managed 0 catches in week 6. He had 133 air yards, a 54% air yard share, and a 30% target share, and yet 0 fantasy points scored as a receiver. What a world. He went off after the game based on his lack of early game usage. I thought last week was a squeaky wheel game for Calvin Ridley. This week, I'm expecting even more noise from the Ridley wheel. After the game, head coach Brian Callahan doubled down on the approach to getting Ridley more involved. Given the favorable schedule, I think Ridley's worth buying at rock bottom prices if he's already not on waivers. The Titans are 0-4 in games where Will Levis has started and completed. 1-0 under Mason Rudolph. We saw Andy Dalton save Deontay Johnson. Rudolph to the rescue. Acquire Calvin Ridley with guys like Keenan Allen, Juwan Jennings, Demario Douglas, or Jalen Tolbert. Or maybe this next sell wide receiver. Michael Pittman Jr., rest of season rank, wide receiver 44. Pittman was targeted 5 times, catching 3 passes for 35 yards and 1 touchdown on a jump ball from Joe Flacco in week 6. He was not limited despite entering the game with a back injury. But for the second straight week, he took a back seat to Josh Downs. But Pittman also scored another touchdown. I want to take advantage and ship him off the score. With Anthony Richardson eventually back under center, only one Colts pass catcher will likely be relevant on a week-to-week basis. And I bet it's Josh Downs, who is the most reliable based on his ability to command targets at an elite level this season. He has the 4th highest target rate per route run this season at 34%. Sell Michael Pittman Jr. for this next wide receiver. Lad McConkey, rest of season rank, wide receiver 42, buy. McConkey was targeted 8 times, catching 4 passes for 43 yards, accounting for a 26% target share and nearly 100 air yards in week 6. He fell just short of a touchdown with 2 targets inside the 10-yard line. McConkey ran a route on 76% of the dropbacks, despite suffering a head injury during the game. He does look to be okay, though, after returning to action. Assuming he is healthy, McConkey remains a top trade target. 27% target share on the season. Top 12 on the season. Great matchup on deck versus Arizona, who just got roasted from the slot against the Green Bay Packers. Get Lad McConkey with Christian Watson, Rashid Shaheed, or this next running back. Bucky Irving, rest of season rank RB28, sell. Bucky Irving had a strong game in week 6, 14 carries for 81 yards, averaging nearly 6 yards a carry. He also added 2 catches on 2 targets for 18 yards. Irving rushed 4 times in the red zone, gaining 24 yards and scoring 1 rushing touchdown without any red zone targets. The snaps without Rachaad White were Bucky Irving 64% and Sean Tucker 38%. Tucker did a lot of his damage in the second half, but it's not as he wasn't involved at all in the offensive game plan. He was used as a receiver in the first half. We don't know what this backfield will look like if and when White returns, but it could be a 3-headed monster down the stretch. Irving's price is at its peak right now. Before a brutal matchup against the no-run Baltimore Ravens in Week 7, Todd Bowles said post-game that Tucker has earned the right for more opportunities. In fact, Bowles used the word three-headed monster regarding his backfield. Gross. Sell high on Bucky Irving, the likes of new Bills wide receiver Amari Cooper, George Pickens, Jalen Waddle, Chase Brown, or even this next running back trade target. Austin Ekeler, rest of season rank, RB31, bye. Ekeler had a quiet day rushing with just 9 carries for 21 yards, averaging 2.3 yards per carry. Ekeler only had 1 red zone rushing attempt for no yards and no targets or touchdowns. Meanwhile, Jerry McNichols had 9 rushing yards on just 2 carries. But the snaps were very in favor of Ekeler, 75% to McNichols' 37%. Ekeler drew the start with Brian Robinson out due to a knee injury. He had the worst matchup imaginable against the league's premier run defense, the Baltimore Ravens. I want to buy low on this backfield, specifically with Austin Ekeler because he's healthy. He also leads all running backs this season in yards per touch. Week 7, hello? Panthers run defense. Furthermore, per the FantasyPros strength of schedule tool, the Commanders have the #1 most favorable schedule the rest of the season for running backs. Get Austin Ekeler on your team, Tank Bigsby, Rico Dowdle, Travis Etienne, Zach Moss, or this next running back. Najee Harris, rest of the season rank RB26, sell. Harris played the fewest snaps since week 2 against Las Vegas, but he had his best game by far in 2024. Jaylen Warren was active for the first time since week 3. It's all it took for Harris to get his production going. Go figure. I talked about how last week Najee Harris has been slow traditionally, so I'd like to think this is a sign of things to come with his production on the upswing. However, this game stands out as a glaring outlier compared to his body of work this year. The Raiders' defense might have been the matchup he needed. Per next-gen stats, the Raiders have allowed a league-high plus 231 rushing yards over expectation this season. I think I use the opportunity to sell high on Najee Harris. The schedule gets much tougher in the second half of the season with all 6 AFC North matchups. I'll admit that if Russell Wilson does indeed start, it helps Harris give his production for rushing touchdowns and receptions. I'd expect Warren to also see a major bump in receiving usage. Still, I want to sell Najee if I can for Chase Brown, Jalen Waddle, George Pickens, Jameson Williams, Devontae Adams, or part of this next package for another receiver I really want to buy. Wide receiver DK Metcalf, rest season rank wide receiver 14. He's a buy. Metcalf led the Seahawks in targets with 11, a 23% target share last Thursday night, but he only managed 48 yards on 3 catches, one of them being a 30-yard gain. Metcalf was targeted 3 times in the red zone, but caught just 1, and he did not score a touchdown. But Metcalf had 166 air yards, a 41% air yard share, making him the quintessential buy low candidate based on the opportunities alone. Seattle will face Atlanta, Buffalo, and the Los Angeles Rams before their bye week. The schedule is great for this offense and its fantasy weapons. Invest in the Seahawks passing game, which is a plus 5% pass rate over expectation over the last 3 weeks. Next up, Chuba Hubbard, rest season rank RB22, sell. The Carolina Panthers saw solid production from their ground game in week 6, with running back Chuba Hubbard leading the charge as he does. Hubbard carried the ball 18 times for 92 yards, averaging just over 5 yards a carry. The snaps were Hubbard 82% and Miles Sanders 23%. I know some are optimistic about Jonathan Brooks seeing a sizable workload down the stretch, but Hubbard has been too good for him to just lose the job outright without an injury. He's 4th in yards from scrimmage and 9th in touches. That being said, Brooks is going to come back sooner rather than later after his 21-day practice window has been opened. He's the future for the Panthers at the running back position, not Hubbard. Hubbard is on an expiring deal at the end of the year. The clock is potentially ticking on Hubbard's role as a 3-down workhorse, especially when it matters most in the fantasy football playoffs. If you need wins now, Hubbard is a hold. But if you're playing the long-term game, cashing out on Hubbard before Brooks returns seems like the sharp move to make. Or at least make sure you also have Brooks on your Hubbard rosters. Look to sell high on Hubbard if you can for players like Jordan Mason, Devontae Adams, J.K. Dobbins, Jalen Waddle, Amari Cooper. Or package him in a deal as a sweetener to get up to an elite player like this next buy low wide receiver. CeeDee Lamb, rest season rank wide receiver 3, buy. Lamb was the lone standout for the Cowboys in week 6, catching 7 of his 14 targets for 89 yards, including a long reception of 27 yards. He commanded a 32% target share, proving to be Dak Prescott's really only go-to option. Lamb had 3 red zone targets, converting 1 into a catch, but none into touchdowns. He had 110 air yards, good for a 34% air yard share. Dallas is following the same script as last year. Start slow, go on the bye week, and hopefully come out guns blazing. Lamb is probably a sharp buy low target as one of the true elite fantasy wide receivers after a lackluster start. You can acquire him. I think their production can really go up from this point. When we look at the FantasyPros strength of schedule tool, Dallas is tied for the number 1 ranked schedule for quarterbacks. If Prescott is cooking, Lamb will surely be along for the ride. Who could you trade for CeeDee Lamb? Names like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, or Alvin Kamara. That's going to tie a bow on my player trade list. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe, and share with all your friends, just not your league mates. And again, before you go, don't forget, unlock the full potential of your team with Trade Central. Pinpoint your strengths, weaknesses, and top trade partners all in one place. Dominate your deals today at fantasypros.com/myplaybook. Thanks for watching and good luck with those trades.